You probably think the reason you're tired is because you didn't sleep long enough. That's what everyone says. Get 8 hours. As if your body is a phone that refuses to turn on until the charging bar hits exactly 100%. Meanwhile, you probably had nights where you slept 9 hours and still woke up feeling like someone had replaced your brain with mashed potatoes. And you've also had those rare 6-hour nights where you somehow felt amazing. So what happened? Simple. You weren't tired because you slept too little. You were tired because your sleep was terrible. Those are two completely different problems. It's like spending 12 hours in a restaurant but never ordering food. Sure, you were technically there for a long time, but that's not the same thing as actually eating. Most people obsess over sleep quantity. The people who consistently wake up energized obsess over sleep quality. And that's a huge difference. Japan is an interesting example of this. The country isn't exactly famous for people spending 10 peaceful hours under weighted blankets listening to rainforest sounds. In fact, many Japanese workers sleep fewer hours than people in other developed countries. Yet despite that, you'll often hear stories about their discipline, productivity, and ability to stay mentally sharp throughout the day. Now, before the comments explode, no. This isn't saying Japanese people have magically evolved into a superior species that survives on 3 hours of sleep and positive thinking. Chronic sleep deprivation is still unhealthy. You can't outsmart biology forever, but they do tend to focus on something most people completely ignore, making every minute of sleep count. That's also why high performers, from athletes to military personnel, care less about time in bed and far more about how quickly they fall asleep, how deeply they sleep, and how consistently they wake up. Because 6 high-quality hours will usually beat 8 hours of fragmented, terrible sleep. Think about charging your phone. Would you rather plug it into a fast charger for 1 hour or connect it to a broken cable for 3? Exactly. Your brain feels the same way. And here's the first mistake almost everyone makes. People treat sleep like it's a switch. You're awake, then suddenly you're asleep. Except that's not how your brain works. Sleep comes in cycles. Each cycle lasts roughly 90 minutes and contains different stages. Some stages repair your muscles, others organize memories, others clean waste products from your brain. Yes, your brain literally has a cleaning crew. While you're asleep, it starts flushing away metabolic waste that builds up throughout the day. It's basically the overnight janitor nobody appreciates. Imagine if your office hired cleaners, but every night someone kept turning the lights on every 20 minutes. The building would never actually get cleaned. That's what fragmented sleep does. Your brain starts cleaning, then someone checks Instagram. Cleaning stops, then starts again. Then your neighbor decides that midnight is the perfect time to test his motorcycle. Cleaning stops again. No wonder you wake up feeling exhausted. Which brings us to one of the biggest sleep myths on Earth. I'll just catch up this weekend. Sounds reasonable. Unfortunately, your brain doesn't work like unpaid overtime. You can't abuse it Monday through Friday and hand it 2 extra hours on Saturday as compensation. Your internal clock loves consistency. Your brain likes knowing when it's supposed to be awake and when it's supposed to shut down. Changing your bedtime by 3 hours every weekend is like changing time zones twice every week. Then people wonder why Monday morning feels like international jet lag. Your body isn't confused because Monday exists. Your body is confused because yesterday you went to bed at 2 a.m. after convincing yourself that future me will deal with it. Future you always gets blamed for everything. Poor guy. This consistency is something you'll notice in many traditional Japanese routines. Meals happen around similar times. Bedtimes tend to be more predictable. Daily habits repeat. Not because repetition is exciting. Let's be honest. It isn't. Nobody has ever shouted, "Yes, another perfectly scheduled bedtime." But repetition removes decision-making, and your brain loves predictable patterns. Think about driving home. Have you ever arrived and realized you barely remember the last 10 minutes? Your brain switched into autopilot because the routine was familiar. Sleep works surprisingly similarly. The more predictable your evening becomes, the less effort your brain needs to transition towards sleep. Instead, most people do the exact opposite. They spend the last hour before bed doing the psychological equivalent of giving their brain 6 energy drinks: scrolling, replying to messages, watching videos, reading emails, arguing with strangers whose profile picture is an anime character wearing sunglasses. Somehow, this feels productive. It's not. Your brain doesn't know the difference between important information and completely useless information. It just sees stimulation. Imagine trying to convince a toddler to go to bed immediately after taking them to an amusement park. Good luck. That's basically what you're asking your brain to do every night, which leads to one of the simplest habits you can steal from people who consistently sleep well. Create what psychologists call a shutdown routine. Not because routines are magical, because they're signals. Think about restaurants. About 30 minutes before closing, they dim the lights, they clean tables, they stop seating new customers. Nobody announces, "Attention everyone, the restaurant is now sleepy." The environment does the talking. Your brain works exactly the same way. If every evening follows roughly the same pattern, dim lights, lower noise, no endless scrolling, maybe reading a physical book or taking a warm shower, your brain starts recognizing the sequence. Oh, we're doing this again. I guess it's time to shut things down. No internal debate required. No staring at the ceiling negotiating with yourself. Just a smoother transition into sleep. And surprisingly, one tiny change can make that transition dramatically easier, even if you think it sounds completely ridiculous. The tiny change is temperature. Most people set up their bedroom based on what feels comfortable while they're awake. Your body couldn't care less. To fall asleep, your core temperature actually needs to drop slightly. That's one of the signals your brain uses to say, "All right, we're done for today." Which is why one of the weirdest sleep hacks actually works. Take a warm shower before bed. It sounds backwards. Wouldn't warming yourself up make you less sleepy? Not really. The warm water causes your blood vessels to expand. Once you get out, your body starts cooling itself much faster, creating the exact temperature drop your brain has been waiting for. It's like pushing a swing backwards so it can move forwards. The human body loves making simple things unnecessarily confusing. Temperature is also why a bedroom that feels nice and cozy often isn't ideal. Most people sleep better in a room that's slightly cooler than they expect. Your body sleeps. Your blanket keeps you comfortable. Everybody wins. Now let's talk about something that quietly ruins millions of nights. Light. For almost all of human history, your brain had one alarm clock: the sun. Then we invented phones capable of recreating daylight at 1 in the morning. And somehow we're surprised we can't sleep. Bright light in the evening tells your brain to delay melatonin production. Melatonin isn't a sleeping pill. It's more like your body's announcement that bedtime is approaching. If you keep blasting your eyes with bright screens, your brain simply delays the announcement. It's like asking someone to leave a party while the DJ just turned the music up. Nobody's going home. This is another habit you'll often see in traditional Japanese homes. As the evening progresses, the environment becomes calmer. Less noise, softer lighting, fewer distractions. Nobody is trying to squeeze 17 more dopamine hits into the final 20 minutes before bed. Your brain notices the difference. And speaking of trying, stop trying so hard to fall asleep. Seriously, have you ever looked at the clock and started calculating exactly how much sleep you have left? If I fall asleep now, I'll still get 7 hours. Then 6 hours and 49 minutes. Then 6 hours and 31. Congratulations! You've turned bedtime into an accounting job. Sleep isn't something you force. It's something you allow. That's why military relaxation techniques focus on slowing your breathing, relaxing your muscles, and letting thoughts pass instead of wrestling with them. Think of sleep like a shy cat. If you chase it around the house, it'll disappear. If you ignore it for 5 minutes, suddenly it's sitting on your lap. The harder you pursue sleep, the more awake you become. One final habit that's surprisingly powerful is movement. Not CrossFit, not running marathons before breakfast, just moving. And one reason many Japanese people sleep well, despite busy lives, is that walking is naturally built into everyday life. Train stations, shops, errands, it all adds up. Movement helps regulate your internal clock and reduces stress without making it feel like exercise. Ironically, the people who say they're too tired to walk are often the people who would benefit from walking the most. Now let's clear up the biggest misconception in this entire video. The goal is not to sleep less. The goal is to need less sleep, because the sleep you're getting is actually doing its job. There's a massive difference. If your sleep is constantly interrupted, 8 hours might only feel like 5. If your sleep is deep and consistent, 7 hours can leave you feeling surprisingly refreshed. That's what this entire video has really been about. Sleep isn't measured by the clock. It's measured by recovery. Most people spend years searching for the perfect mattress, the perfect supplement, or the perfect gadget. Meanwhile, They're going to bed at random times, scrolling until midnight, sleeping in a room that's too warm, and wondering why they wake up exhausted. The boring habits win. They almost always do. Because the people who wake up energized usually aren't doing anything extraordinary. They're simply doing ordinary things extraordinarily consistently.